So let's start with baseball and our baseball panel here. So we've got DraftKings contributor Garion, Thorne, RotoWire's Erik, Halterman. Yes, I don't see Kenny Ducey. Of course, his internet probably broke. That's why you do not use a hospital's internet Wi-Fi. Price check here, guys. Which players do you like on tonight's MLB slate at the following price ranges? So, Gabriel, start me off here. Pitcher at 8K or higher, dude.
Yeah, I guess we should preface this by saying pitching is awful tonight on this 8-game slate. So you're going to have to do some things you might not want to do. But I don't think that should necessarily cloud Alek Manoa, who I think is going to be super popular. I will admit that. Insanely popular for someone making his second career start. But I think you saw pretty much everything you wanted to see from that first start against the Yankees. Granted, the Yankees just haven't been hitting well in general lately. But Manoa goes 6 scoreless innings, strikes out 7, finishes that game with a 31.8% strikeout rate. And I think the most encouraging sign was he used his changeup almost 15% of the time, and it was very effective. And that was the big question with Manoa is he a fastball slider, 2-pitch pitcher, or can he mix in a third above average pitch? And at least last Thursday, it seemed like he had that capability. So that really bodes well going forward. The Marlins so far this season have a 121 isolated power against right-handed pitching. That is the second lowest mark in baseball. And in terms of win probability, the Jays just seem to win in Buffalo. So I think Manoa at 8,200 is justifiably going to be one of the more popular plays on today's slate.
Oh, yes, the Queen City of New York State. Erik, how about you, buddy? Pitcher at 8K or higher?
Yeah, definitely a fan of Manoa also in this one. Love the matchup. Even without the minor league track record, this is what they look like when they come up and they're good right away. Dominant in 3 AAA starts and really didn't lose anything against the Yankees. So he's my number one guy, but just for the sake of content, I'll talk about Sean Manaya, who's the other guy in that top tier that I like. Wish he was a little cheaper than 9,600, but given some of the other names, I think it's pretty justified that he's the third most expensive. Faces a Mariners team that's 6th from the bottom in WRC plus and plays in a pitcher-friendly park. So all of those supporting factors couldn't go much better for him. He's not an elite pitcher, but doesn't really have holes in his game. ERA in the high 3s, with some ERA estimators having him more in the mid 3s. About a league average strikeout rate this year, which is better than what he is most seasons, and he's kept his usual strong control, walking just 5.5% of opposing batters. On the whole, it doesn't necessarily add up to somebody who'd be quite the third best on most slates. And I think I like Manoa, given that you get, $1,400 extra dollars by going with him. But I think pairing those two would be what I'd be looking to do if I was going expensive with both pitchers.
Yeah, talking the 8-game main slate here, folks. How about a hitter over 5K, Erik? We've talked about who you're going to pay up for at pitcher. What about a dude holding the bat?
Yeah, that'd be Max Muncy at 5,200. We know he's been good for a while, but he's been about as good as I've ever seen him lately. In his last 25 games, he's hitting 341 with 10 homers. If you zoom in on just his last 10, he's got 5 homers in that stretch. And over the season as a whole, there's an argument that this is the best Max Muncy season. He's got his career high barrel rate of 16.5%, 6th among qualified hitters. His walk rate is also a career high, nearly 20%, nearly walking 1 out of every 5 plate appearances. And his strikeout rate is barely higher than that at 21.4%, his lowest since joining the Dodgers. So everything he's doing, seeing the ball and hitting the ball, is as good as it's ever been, especially in the last couple weeks. And he'll get the platoon advantage against Carlos Martinez, who is still okay, but is just incredibly hittable. 13.6% strikeout rate, beats only Dallas Keuchel and Zach Davies among pitchers who've thrown at least 50 innings this year. So I don't think he's going to put Muncy away. And if you let Muncy hit it, he's hitting it as hard as ever these days.
All right, Garion, you're up.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ronald Acuna Jr. I think he and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. are just at a point where if they're not over $6,000, they're viable. I mean, they're viable over $6,000, but a little bit more affordable is always nice. And Acuna is $5,700 on this slate against John Lester. And at this point, I have no faith in John Lester. He's not missing bats. He's had some pretty ugly starts since coming off the IL. And he's also giving up a .500 slugging percentage to right-handed bats so far this season. Acuna against lefties, 42 plate appearances, so not a massive sample in 2021, but he does have a 214 WRC plus and a 382 isolated power within the splits. So he's hitting every lefty, and John Lester, I wouldn't even say is a league average lefty at this point. So if we're getting 5 plate appearances with Acuna, I do think he can bring back value even at a price tag like 5.7.
All right, we've talked about a pricier bet here, Gare Bear, but give me someone who's going to carry some value.
I'm going to go with Josh Harrison on the other side of that Braves Nationals game. We've got Drew Smyly pitching for the Braves. He's been terrible so far this season, giving up 2.76 home runs per 9. Harrison has a couple things going for him. One, he's just $3,000. Two, he has multi-position eligibility at both second base and outfield, so you can get him into a lot of lineups in a bunch of different ways. And the last couple nights, he's hit second in the order for the Nationals, including last night's game against a left-handed pitcher. And so far this season, his numbers against lefties are far better than his numbers against righties. He's hitting 333 within the split. He's got a 156 WRC plus against southpaws. So this is a really good spot against any lefty, and the fact that it's Drew Smyly makes it even more tantalizing.
All right, what about you, Erik?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a pair of Astros lefties against Nick Pivetta, and that would be Jordan Alvarez at 3,900 and Kyle Tucker at 3,500. Pivetta is having, maybe the year we wanted him to have for years. Wish it could have come in one of his many seasons with my Phillies. And I feel like I've seen this 10-start stretch from him in the past, so I'm just not buying in still. He does have an above-average strikeout rate, but not an elite one, 26.3%, and that comes with way too many walks and not enough grounders. So I think he's, even if the good version of Pivetta isn't somebody we should be avoiding at all costs or even at any cost, really. Jordan Alvarez usually is much more like a $5,000 player, hitting over 300. Could use a bit more power from him, but we've all seen what he can do, especially his rookie year when I believe he was right up there with Mike Trout in WRC plus at the league top of the leaderboard. Kyle Tucker is somebody who's, I think, trailed his expected stats by a lot this season. Slugging 480, but that's 98 points below his expected slugging. And that was really early in the year. He was getting very unlucky and looked like he was hitting as well as ever, despite numbers that were nowhere near there. He started dragging his season line up over the past several weeks, and I think he's exactly the guy we wanted him to be, despite the fact that his season-long numbers don't reflect that, and neither does his price. So I think he's probably the better value of the two, but I like them both.
Erik, let's switch over to the other side here and talk DK Sportsbook. So what's your favorite MLB bet for tonight?
Yeah, I like the Rays over the Yankees. I believe it was plus 120 last I checked at it. Rays have a better lineup. They're 8th by WRC plus. The Yankees are 15th, and they're without Luke Voit again, although I guess they've been without him for most of the year, so that's mostly reflected in that ranking. He's out with an oblique this time around. And I think they probably have a better pitcher on the mound as well, the Rays. Shane McClanahan, not a large resume for him, but he looks like you'd want him to look. He's a lefty with a fastball that sits 97.5 miles per hour, a slider that sits just over 90. 3.29 ERA looks very well deserved by the peripherals. In fact, FIP and XFIP both have him just under 3. Striking out nearly 30% of opposing batters, walking just 6.5, and with an above-average ground ball rate too. So really no flaws for him. Workload issues were a concern early in the year. He went just 4 innings in his first 3 starts, but he hit 5 innings in each of his last 3. So I think he could handle the bulk of the innings here before turning it over to a good Rays pen. Jordan Montgomery on the other side, he's perfectly fine, but I don't think he has the upside that McClanahan has. ERA 4.22 is maybe a little worse than the estimator suggests, but he's been fine. Doesn't walk a lot of guys, has basically a league average ground ball rate, but there's a lot more to like about McClanahan, and the Rays have been a better offense, so I'm not sure why they're underdogs.
Gare Bear, favorite Major League Baseball bet on the DK Sportsbook tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Jays, but I'm going to make it first 5. And I think it's an important distinction. Not only is it better odds, they're only minus 150 first 5 versus minus 155 for the full game on the money line, but the Jays bullpen has been really shaky as of late. They've actually blown 4 games the past 2 weeks in one of the final 2 innings with a win expectancy of at least 85%. So it's been a little shaky. A lot of people with Jays tickets have been upset. And last night, Rafael Dolis and Jordan Romano both pitched. Romano throwing about 25 pitches. So there's a chance that their 2 best relievers are on the shelf for Wednesday's game. Other than that, it's also just a bet for Alek Manoa versus Pablo Lopez at this point. And I actually like Lopez in general. And I'm not usually someone who looks too heavily into home road splits for pitchers. I just think there are better things to do. However, in certain circumstances, they are so abnormal that you kind of have to take note. And I think it's also important to do this with Marlins pitchers because we have seen Miami be very pitcher friendly in the past, particular guys. Lopez has an ERA under 1 in Miami. It is 5.13 on the road. He has a 358 opponent WOBA on the road. It is just 225 at home. So it is a vast disparity between his effectiveness home and away. And the Blue Jays across the last 30 days have the number 1 slugging percentage in baseball and the number 1 WOBA in baseball. So you do not want to be messing around with this team if you are struggling on the road, especially in a park that we now know is a hitter's park in Salem Field. So I think Blue Jays first 5 at -150 is my favorite bet of the day.